Good morning everybody, welcome back to Sunday's little show again. Going to get straight into it today. No mucking around. I didn't get any questions that I need to go following up, so I think everything we talked about last week was all okie doke and there weren't any extra questions. So what we're going to do today is we are going to put together the lid for our little trinket box. Now we've lost the picture here.
Go back.
I don't know what's happening, but
we'll try this. I'll try the mobile again.
Try that again.
No?
No.
Go back to that.
Go back to that. Something happening here. Check this.
All right.
We've got an issue here. We just have to deal with it. Just a sec. No, that's gone.
Okay, let's try the connection at the back.
Just talk amongst yourself there, folks. We'll see what the problem is here. That's right, that's right.
Okay, let's try that again.
Try again.
Don't tell me we've got a blowout.
We've got an issue with one of our cameras.
Oh no,
we're
back on.
Again. We're back on. Okay. Okay, sorry about that.
Something's wiggled loose.
Something has come loose in the moving of the trolley. Well, we have all our stuff on a trolley, and I move it back and forth as I need it. For those of you who haven't seen it before, yeah, sometimes the wires come loose. Anyway, back to where we were. The lid. We're going to finish building the lid today. So what we did last week is we cut the frames, we cut the miters in it, and we cut the butterflies in the framework. Today what we need to do is cut the keys, build the panel, fit the whole lot together, and hopefully we can get that done in an hour. But we'll see how we go. There's a fair bit of work involved and a lot of fiddle around and a lot of testing and so forth before we actually get everything to fit. So bear with us and we'll just get through it. This is one of the boxes that we built with the H20 on our mini jig. And as you can see, dovetails are nicely spread out. I've got the lid made for this one because I didn't use the same technique that I would use on this one. This one here has a rebate around here and it's set into there. This one here is just flush with the edge, so it's just flush with the top of it. That's quite a difficult one to do on air because it takes so long and there's a lot of testing and a lot of measuring and mucking around with it to actually get it to work. So we wanted to get that result. So inside it looks flush as well, so it doesn't have the rebate around it. Now that's another technique. One day I'll go through that with you. But for today we'll do the simple one. We'll just put a rebate in there and we'll set that into a trench. So the first thing we have to do is pick the boxes we're going to work with. And I think the box we might work with will be this one here, the rose mahogany one. I've got bits and pieces all over the place. We're going to put a piece of lace she oak in the middle of it. And our frame is the same timber that the box is made out of, with lace she oak, it's not lace she oak, silver ash inserts, and I showed you how to make those last week. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually build this box frame lid, and it's going to have that frame there, and I've got some silver ash that I've dressed down to 6mm. And the reason it's 6mm is because I need to get a pointer, is because the distance across here is 6 millimeters, and you need to have this set at 6 millimeters so that it sits nicely into the corners of the dovetail. Okay, so if you have that set at 6 mil, it's quite easy to get your bits and pieces. So what we want to do now, actually I have to go back a step. You'll notice on this one here, Pammy, can you come in on this one?
Come in.
This has a trench in here. We have a trench in there, and I haven't shown you how I go about that, so I need to go back and do that first, but I can't do it on that one because I've already got it done. But I can do it on this one here. Now, I'll just put this one away for the moment. So what I did here, you can see this here, like you can see I've cut a trench in this piece of timber here for this to go in, and then I've cut my butterfly, and as you can see it's taken out part of the tongue which was on that piece of material there. So now what I want to do is I want to cut a trench in here for the panel fit in. Right, so that's the next task to do. So we'll do that, and then we'll go on with the other box as well. Good thing having a number of different boxes. Okay, so a fence, Hammy's favourite little thing to film around are these fences. It means she has to do a little dance to actually get the show on the road. Okay, so the one that I've got here is my trench. Now, get my pencil again. When I cut this trench, the distance here was 4 millimeters. Right? So I used a 4 millimeter slot cutter to cut that trench. What I want to do here is I want to cut the trench so that it actually leaves material on either side of the trench, so that there's support for this piece of material right through the whole setup. So what I'm doing is I'm going to use a 3.2, and as you can see it just fits in there nicely. 3.2 millimeter slot cutter. So that's what I'm going to do. Now the important thing to remember here is you've got to get it in the middle, and that can be a little difficult. What I'll do is I will mark my centre. Now I'm only marking my centre with my finger gauge. I'm not measuring, because I want a relatively thick line so that I've got something to work with. And as you can see, it's quite a thick line. It's in the middle because of the equidistance here and here because of the way I set my fingers up. Did the same on the other end. That way I can test it both sides of the round a bit. Where's my piece of wood that I marked? Now I'm going to set this up on my side so that I can actually see what I'm doing, and then I'll turn it around so that you can see how close to centre I have it. It's quite a difficult little task actually, getting it right when you do it by eye. I could measure it. So now you can see I'm set up right on the centre, and when I push it through to where the slot is, you can see I've got a little bit of material on both sides of the cutter.
Well, we really can't.
You really can't see it,
yeah,
but
it's hard.
anyway, that's the idea. So I have a little bit of material there. So now we bring it over. Get my LARK tool and measure 10mm. I don't want it exactly 10mm, but close enough is good enough for this exercise. But close to 10mm. I'm actually going to back it off a little bit so I'll make it about 9mm. Okay, that's that bit. We lock in.
Don't budge it.
I'll just check it before I go any further. I did budge it. Love it. Okay, now dust extractor. Now what I could do here is I could cut it and then just turn it over. I'm just thinking that I might have a piece of material. No, actually I don't have any material left over that I can actually test it on. So I'm going to trust my judgment. Sometimes that's not a good idea, but we have to at this stage. Okay, ears on everybody. I think I've got it pretty close. Now I want it in the centre because...
Sorry, just hold it still so I can see.
I want it in the centre because when I cut the rebate for the panel, I can just flip it over and cut the second side without having a step. Now, it's the tiniest little bit off. Again, testing the judgment didn't work. So What I'm doing there is just taking off the edge. You may have noticed that I've rounded over the top edge. I can't remember if I did that for you last week, but I've rounded over the top edge so that the top of the...
Yeah,
I did it last week?
Yeah.
Okay. I've rounded over the top edge so that it actually dives into the rebate that we're going to cut in the panel, and it takes away the sharpness around the edge of the panel. And I do that before I actually cut that second trench, basically because there's not a lot of material there, and if I was trying to cut a curve on just that light thin piece, there's a good chance that I would do some damage. So I do it beforehand. This is just a piece of 180. What I'm doing is just taking the sharpness off that top edge. Just cleaning out any splinters that might be there. And it's just a matter of going through that process to get that done. You can just make it look nice as well. Okay, so basically now we have the rebate in the whole thing. Alright, so there's all my trenches, and as you can see, plenty of material in there to support the panel once it goes in. All I have to do now is make the panel with a rebate or a tongue that will fit into those bits there. So let's put that one away and bring out the one we were initially going to work with. There's this one here. And so what we're going to have, find the numbers that go together, we're going to end up with is something like this. And of course that'll be fitted in there quite nicely, so it'll go in there. The piece of material is big enough. I've got a bit left over here, so that's going to fit in there and it should look really, really nice. So what we need to do now is cut the butterflies to fit, or the keys to fit in the butterflies. Like I said, piece of 6mm material, and this is how we go about that. First of all, when I cut butterflies, sometimes this is not an exacting task, and so therefore what we need to do is make a number of bits and pieces to do the butterflies. So on this one here, when I cut the butterflies, the material for that, I cut myself 2 extra pieces. Now I can use that later for another task, another job. It's 6mm thick, and it's the same distance across the butterfly. So that would have fitted into there, and it's just a matter of cutting the dovetail shape. And that, when I did this one here, this is the other lid that I had. I cut myself a wide piece, and I had 2 extra of those, and a narrow piece. And that, as you can see, this one has already been cut. That's the shape that it's going to be, and it didn't fit, so I had to have another one. So when I cut them, I cut 2 or 3 of them, and okay, it's going to be a little bit of waste, but I tried to sort of make sure I've got plenty of material to do some sort of testing or adjustment afterwards. So good idea to do it that way. So what I need to do now is I'm going to put two of these together. That's how they're going to live. What I need to do is I need to measure the distance across there. So that's 14 millimeters exactly. Okay, they'll all be the same. So what I need to do is I need to cut 14 millimeter parts on here. Now I may be able to get two out of the one piece, but we'll see. So over to the drop saw. The thing that I'm going to do is measure my distance first. Now this is my push block that I'm going to use, and the piece of timber is going to sit in the push block like this, so it needs to be only that long. So we don't want it to protrude past the push block, we want it to sit towards the end of the block, so it needs to be about that long. So what we can see here is now it doesn't quite reach the end of the push block. The best way to have it. Now in the past I've had people call me and say, well, you know, how much are your push blocks? And I've told them the price, and they've had conniptions because the material is actually a piece of compact laminate and it's quite heavy. If you made one out of timber, it would be very, very light and probably not have the same stability when you're cutting your butterflies. So cutting them out of the compact laminate actually makes them quite heavy and quite good for cutting your butterflies or your keys. So what I need to do now is cut myself a piece of material at 14 millimeters. Okay, so I'll just find a zero there. 10, 14. I don't think I'm going to get two 14 millimeter pieces off this bit of wood, so I'll get another one off the other one. You need to be very accurate with this. Not quite 14 mil. So I need to, and before I cut the second one, I need to check that this is the right length, the right width I should say. So I fit it together like that, just hold it steady and fit that in, and it's exactly the right length, width. You can see it just fits into the corner. No problem, check the other end. Yep, it's just a beautiful fit. And you can see that it's going to fit into there. Okay, so that's the size I need. I can cut another one off here. I might just cut the whole length. It's the same thickness material. Just check that. Yep. Other end's fine. Yep. Okay, so I've got a spare bit. They're both exactly the same. Let's over to the table. I'll just keep that in the same length it is at the moment. I won't bother chopping it up. Let's change my route a bit. Remember, we're doing butterflies with the H10 cutter. So there's a space here.
Cole, Graham Bell asks, do you use a thicknesser to get down to the thickness that you need?
I'll use the thicknesser initially and then I'll run it through the drum sander to get the thickness I need. Now, setting the height of this needs to be half the width of our piece of timber. And I put my pencil down and I can't find it, so I have to get another one. I find pencils lying all over the workshop. So again, I'm just using my finger gauge. Turn my piece of timber around. And I've got a pretty good mark there. Okay, so now I'll set my height to the line. That's it, right there. Now this next bit is quite important. It is quite important. What I'm doing here is I've got the 2 points of the router bit at 90 degrees to my fence. Okay, that's very important. Make it sure the 2 points are or thereabouts, pretty close. All right. Now when I cut my little dovetail here, what I want to do is I want to cut to the corner. The same on this side. And then I'll be cutting from there to the corner as well. So we're trying to get that shape. That section there, centre, is the top point of the router bit. If you have your fence too far back, you're going to end up cutting into there. That's not going to work. You need to be right on the point there, because the point is the 6mm width of the dovetail. So, and like I said before, I've cut a number of these because I might not get it right the first time round. So I might change that to a black block so a little easier to see. Now when we cut, put that pencil down, when we cut the butterfly, we only cut to about here. So the rebate will be between those 2 points. The reason for that is this surface here becomes the support when you have it over this way. If you don't have the support, it's going to rock when it's up against the push block. So we only cut from there to there. I hope that explains everything. Now, getting the right cut. We're 90 degrees to the fence. And one way of doing that, I find this is a task, this is something that I often do. The straight edge of a piece of sandpaper is quite adequate to get your adjustment. Now, it may sound funny, but it does work. So I'm pushed the sandpaper up against the router bit. And then bring the fence to the piece of sandpaper. Okay. A little bit more. Alright. Now when you put your piece of timber on there,
better lock that off
while it's sitting there. Just make sure everything's tight there. So when you push your piece of timber up against the cutting edge should just fill in the little bit that I marked on it earlier. So I'll just check from this direction. You won't be able to see it on camera. It looks pretty good to me. Okay. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to push against the router bit. The router bit's spinning in this direction, so it wants to kick everything back that way. So what do? We put on the stop. Now stop. Find it. This should do the job. Lock that into place, and now it's just a matter of pushing that through. Now what I've done is I've stopped, the centre of my router bit is sitting about here. It's not at the end, it's right there, because I want that little pad at the end of it to actually support when I flip it over. So I'm starting my cut there, and then of course I'm going to stop my cut there. If you wish to put a mark on there, you can do that. Just put a mark there. This one here's got the mark there. So it's about right. So it's just a matter of pushing that on. Now be careful with your fingers, because your fingers are relatively close to the router bit. But the thing about it is, and this is why we've got the heavy push block, is the heavy push block is going to actually keep everything fairly stable when you start the cut. Okay, ears on. I'm not going to turn the dust extractor on, there's such a small amount of dust comes off it. Now, here's the test. I'm not quite sure if you can see this, but the cut has gone from the centre to there. So I actually haven't cut enough out. The cut has to go from the centre to this point, not just to there. So therefore what I have to do is I have to push the fence back a tiny little bit. Don't need to go very far, and we'll do another cut. Here's on. So my cut is there. Now, so a little bit more. So now I've got it right to the edge. So it's just on the edge there, which is perfect for what I want. Right, and I've got a deep cut in the centre. So now, flip your piece of timber over and we'll cut the other side. you can see when I'm cutting that, the whole of the router bit is actually covered. And that's what you want. You don't want it exposed at any stage so that it actually tries to get your fingers. Now, when we turn this over, you can see there's a little bit of tear out here. Just make sure you get that off. You don't want that sort of interfering. And if I tip it over onto its back, now you can see where that support is. The support's there and there. So it's sitting flat. So your measurements and your shape of your router bit should be exactly the same on the other side of the piece of timber. So you're probably asking, what happens when you cut that piece off the end of it there and it doesn't fit? How do we readjust it? Readjust it by doing what I said earlier. Cut yourself a couple of pieces of timber, readjust and make a new one. Now sometimes you may need to make 3 or 4 of them before you get it right. But it takes a little bit of practice and it takes a little bit of thought to get through it. But eventually, after you've done it a few times, you'll find that it's quite a simple task. So what I want to do now is show you how it's going to fit. Because that's not going to fit on there. There we go. I'm not going to shift that. I might have to go...
Yeah, just work it for the end there.
Here. And what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to cut the end off. And there's my little dovetail. Okay, let's see if it fits. I'm hoping it does, because if I have to go through the whole procedure again. It's actually really tight. Let's try it on one piece. Okay, so it fits in there quite nicely. Be careful when you're pulling it out. Fits in there quite nicely, and you can see how it fits now. Nice, neat, clean, tight fit. If I put the other one on, it just needs a bit of a tap in, that one. It's getting caught on the bottom edge of the trench. So I'd probably take a little bit more off if I was... The issue I have here is that I'm using a really hard timber, and that's the silver ash. So it's a tight fit. Just a little bit of work with a little bit of sandpaper might do the trick. Take too much off. Just make it a little bit smoother. Now we're not going to fit them straight away into the thing, but what we have to do now is we have to make the panel to fit in there. I've got 20 minutes, so we should be able to make a panel in 20 minutes. Just a little bit more off the end there. quite a delicate little operation, this one. Gives you really good visuals. It's a really good lock for the mitre joint as well. It holds the mitre joint together nicely. Let's see what we've got. It fits better. Aha. Tight, but still it's okay. Might just take a little bit off the back of it. Now what I'll do is I'll cut them to wet length. I generally cut them all to the length I've got on my cutting board here. And that gives me adequate height. Two. Three. I hope I haven't bored you silly today. This is a small operation. That's no good. So there's my 4 pieces. And what I'm going to do with them, I'm just going to take a little bit off the outside edge, just to make it fit a little bit better. Should be able to have that fitted in there. Okay, so that's pretty much, oh, it's not right, not quite right. A little bit more. Now these are small. Sometimes what I've seen is people who have a slab of timber that has a split in it. They put a butterfly across the split.
So they can be any size you like.
So you can make them any size you like. And there's perfect fit, that one. Okay, so the dovetail, the joint is actually really nicely snug together. So just a little bit of adjustment. Didn't have to go back to the router to do it, but just a small amount of adjusting, and that's what we've ended up with. So that's quite nice. Now, the panel. Let's get rid of this. Finish with that. So building a bench hook is quite a simple little task. One of these days I'll build one for you, show you how I make them. I'll keep that there. And what I want to do now is make the panel. This is going to be the panel. I have to change my fence because I'm going to use a different fence for this. Keep that close. Let's extract it off. Back where it belongs. Just putting stuff away so that I haven't got it all hanging all over the place. I need the tenon cutter one this time. No, not the tenon cutter. I'm going to use my panel raising bit. So I'm going to use my panel raising bit fence. Okay, how do we get the size? We need 2 pieces. That one, and a thin ruler, So what I'm going to do is sit the ruler in, and where it comes out here, so it's sitting in the bottom of the trench, so it's to there, that's where the piece of timber is going to come to, and my measurement to the outside here is 192 millimetres. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it back to 190 millimetres. So that's going to be the length of my piece of timber, will be 190 millimetres. Put that on there. And across the piece of timber, put my measurement in there again. And I've got 110, 115, 116. If I take it back to 114, that will be fine. No, let's take, yes, 114. So my piece of timber is going to be 190 millimetres long, so I can cut a bit off it, not much, but a little bit. 190. Which end do I cut off? That one's a bit rugged. That one's fairly clean. So let's go that way. And 114. Now what do I want to keep in the pattern? I've got plenty of material so I can cut a bit off both sides if I want. Or I can keep that heavy patterning where it goes to light, so it'll go to about there. What do you reckon, Pammy?
Oh, it's a tough one because
it is a tough one because we've got a couple of little pieces there. If I bring it out to here,
yeah, make it more equidistant.
So 114 to there.
It doesn't isolate. It doesn't leave that out on its own, the light bit.
Yes. Okay, let's do that. Okay, so over to the drop saw. $119 millimeters. Get this piece off. Pretty on that side, isn't it?
That's the one. That's the side.
So 114 goes to there. That's 104. Let's go to 114. I made that mistake a couple of weeks ago and I wasted a nice piece of timber because I didn't get the measurement right. I'm just going to check that. 114. We have a couple of birds running around on our roof at the moment, making a racket. So I think that's going to be the outside. What do you reckon?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the outside?
Yeah.
So what we're going to end up with, $10 mil, $10 mil. Something that looks a bit like that.
Oh yeah, very nice.
Okay, so that's going to be quite pretty. Way up. Okay, so what I need to do now is I need to cut the rebate around here so that it will fit into there. So first of all, what I have to do is get a measurement. Get out a different LARK tool this time. And the measurement for there is 3 mil. Okay, so I'm going to use my panel raising bit. For those of you who haven't seen the panel raising bit, that's what the panel raising bit looks like. It's exactly the same as its cousin, the tenon cutter, except it has a curve, a little 1/4 inch radius on the top edge of the outside there. This is its cousin. You can see it's square. It's got square corners there, round corners on that one. So we'll use this one. Again, as you saw, there wasn't very much offcut for that piece of material that I cut this panel off, so I don't have anything to actually do any testing on. I could find a piece of scrap the same thickness. That's not the same thickness. No, that's thin. That's too thin as well. I don't have a piece handy to do a testing on, so I'm going to, and because we don't have a lot of time left, I'm just going to wing it. So, set my height to my LARK tool. That's my height. And now, fence in. When I set the distance here, what we have is the depth is 10 mil, exactly 10 millimeters. Now, if I cut this to 10 mil, with the radius on here, what would happen is the top edge of that would bind on the top edge of there and the bottom edge of there, which means it wouldn't go in far enough. So therefore we have to allow for a little bit extra. So if I set that at 10 mil, and then I just add 2 or 3 millimeters. Now it doesn't have to be much, just enough so that the radius of the router bit will clear the top edge and the bottom edge of the trench. Okay, so that should be just about enough. Again, this is something that you would have to check, you would have to work with, and do it a few times and you'll find that you'll get a pretty good guesstimate. And also I want to use the dust extractor, so I'm going to put this on here and I'm going to swing the table around so that Pan can actually show you with the camera what's actually happening. As I get this attached. And when I do this, I generally do my end grain first. Swing the table around. The beauty of the table, you can move it. Got my earmuffs and a push block. So ears on, everybody. So you probably see that's going to be a little bit too fat, it's not going to fit in there. And I'm happy about that. So now I just have to raise it up a little bit. The easiest way to raise it up is to bring it. A piece of timber there, because it's already cut it off, should slide over it, which it does. And all I'm going to do now is raise it up so it doesn't slide over, just a tiny little bit, and recut. And I'm just going to creep up on the measurement that I need. Still doesn't fit. So I'll bring it up a little bit more. And that's given me a perfect fit. So now it's just a matter of doing the other end. Inside. Okay. And there's my panel fitted into. Probably got more of a gap than I like, but it's still a variation on what the box looks like. And then it's just a matter of now fitting and gluing that together. One of these I sanded nicely so that it fitted perfect. One. a little bit of sanding. It's got a couple of little burrs on it. How's the chat, Pammy? Is it nice and quiet there, or
Yeah, it's
put
quiet.
everybody to sleep, have I?
It looks like it.
Two. Just a light little bit of tidy up to get those to fit perfect. The measurements were pretty close. Okay, now before they get glued together, that one actually doesn't fit very well at the moment. A little bit more off there. This one's got a burr on it. I probably should cut another one off that leftover bit, but I'll just take a bit off this. There you go. Okay, so that's what the panel is going to look like before it gets glued. It's a perfect fit. I haven't pushed them all the way in yet, but they will show up on the other side. I don't want to push them all the way down because I can't get them out then. So that's what it's going to look like. Now, when we're joining all this together, there's a tool that we use. We've run out of time, but I'm going to show you this tool anyway. I'm not going to glue it together on air because it just takes a little while for it to actually set up. But the tool that we use to actually set it up is this little board here. Now, this is a homemade one, and it's basically just a framework on a piece of heavy ply with a whole heap of T-nuts set into the framework. It's what we call our cramping jig. Now, the cramping jig works like this. You set your piece of timber in here, and then you can cramp it up just using the knobs on the T-nuts. Now that will cramp it up nice and tight, and you just adjust that and have that sitting where you want it. The important thing to remember, we sell the bits and pieces to build the T-nuts, to build the
Cramping jig.
the cramping jig. And this is what it is. It's a cramping jig kit. I'll put it in this little box. There's 4 hand knobs. You can see them on the thing here, and 12 T-nuts. And what you need to do is recess those T-nuts on the inside of a thick piece of timber, something that's quite solid. A hardwood is advisable. I've mitered the corners. You can use your dovetail jig and dovetail them if you want to use the H10 or the B10 I should say. You can cut some dovetails in it if you like. The important thing about this is that this corner here must be perfectly square. So when you put the square on it, it should be perfectly square in here, like that. Because you're pushing from two different directions. You're pushing from this direction and you're pushing from this direction. And when you push things into those corners, you have to be pretty square to actually get an accurate push. The extra bits and pieces of material that you put in there must also be perfectly square. So manufactured timber like the MDF, I'm using it on its edge, and the flat bits I've cut to square, so everything is perfectly square within the framework of that jig. So when you make one, you can purchase this from us. We've got them on the website. You can have a look. It's called a cramping jig. I think it's in Box Making Accessories. You can purchase the bits and pieces, but you have to come up with the framework itself. I've just got a piece of white laminate on the bottom of it, just so that I've got stuff I can see what's going on, and I'll keep it nice and clean, and everything sits up nice and even so that I can actually clamp things together. So if you're going to do that, by all means do that. I have seen people using the wraparound straps with the square corners to cramp those things together. I find them really awkward. That's why I find this is a little a better situation. And you can make these as big as you like. So if you're doing doors, you can make them pretty big, and you'll still get the same result every single time. Or if you're making tiny little things, you can make a smaller one. So if you have a number of these in your workshop, you just go to the one that you need when you want to clamp it up. So during the week I will glue all the doors together, and next week we'll be talking about hinging. So that's a favourite subject of a lot of people who struggle with it. So we'll be talking about hinging, and we're going to set up and hinge the lid to the boxes. So we'll be going through that next week. So have a good week, everybody. Thanks for watching for today. I hope I haven't put you to sleep. It's an exacting process, and it takes a little while to get it right. So persevere with it, and you should be able to get everything pretty good. So anyway, keep practicing, keep working at it, and I will see you all next week.